When the Arena Football League dissolved in 2019, it took the Philadelphia Soul with it. The Soul was considered one of the most successful Arena League teams and winning 3 championships during the league's last time around.
Well, now the league is back under new ownership, and so is the Philadelphia Soul.
So last time we spoke, we were getting ready for the new season, bringing back the Philadelphia Soul, everything after 5 years. And now things have changed really just over the last couple of months or so. First thing, how are you doing? How's the team doing? And what's the status of the Philadelphia Soul?
Man, I'm doing pretty good, man. Things didn't end the greatest, but it is what it is, man. I still run my contracting business, still take care of my little girl. And as far as the team is concerned, man, a lot of the guys did separate and go to different teams, which I was very thankful for. I was able to help a few guys, man, to get to certain places. But other than that, man, coaches, I've been in touch with coaches. They've been doing pretty good, doing their thing, just went back to their own personal lives. Some of them actually went back coaching other places, which is a good thing. And others just sitting back and relaxing, man. But other than that, man, all has been well since then.
It's late April and it's the week of opening games. The Soul were preparing to travel for their first game against the Louisiana Voodoo, but I don't think anyone was prepared for the domino effect that started that week.
I'm just at the airport now. I'm at Philadelphia International. I'm on my way home from the airport because I didn't, I got to the airport, I got to the gate, there was maybe 1 or 2 players there, there was no coaches, there was no staff. Yeah, we didn't get on the airplane, we didn't hear anything from the coaches, we didn't hear anything from the ownership, we didn't hear anything from the GMs. I texted the GM a bunch of times to kind of see what's happening. I didn't have anyone else's number. Our head coach was not there, he unfortunately had to retire/quit the other day.
Anybody that's close to the situation knows, really, I don't think Pimmel was at fault for any of this. Pimmel was trying to be the GM of the team, which isn't his job title, and pretty much the owner of the team. And he was doing 50 million other responsibilities but coaching. But honestly, once Joe started saying, hey, Pimmel hasn't been at practices, and I'm like, what do you mean? And he's like, he's been out doing 50 million other things and then Joe started saying our water bottles just came in. And then now around a week ago was the time, or a little bit more was the time, the food stopped for the guys. The team was never paying for food for the guys, which is completely irresponsible and is not what happens in any of the arena leagues.
In addition to Pimmel resigning, Arena Insider broke the story that players were kicked out of their rooms of the team hotel in New Jersey. The hotel allegedly held onto the players' belongings until they were paid. Many of the players did not even receive a flight to the game. And on top of that, they were handed these release papers. We blurred out the player's name for legal reasons. Nothing is written on the document listing out the reasons for the termination, other than that the player is entitled to a $300 payment.
Commissioner Hutton gets on a teleconference with the whole team pretty much the night before they got put out on the street. And he's bringing my tweets up to the team and telling them that he's going to open an investigation on the team and figure out who's leaking information, which is not leaking information. That's that's the well-being of your players and your franchise. If you don't want that out in public, do better. You know what I'm saying? It's just called taking care of human beings. And so, from then on, he told the whole team, lied to the team. I wasn't aware of any of these things. I wasn't aware of, they gave him the list of problems and presented them to the commissioner. He said he was going to work with the GM and to address these issues. And then, from my knowledge, guys had already seen email strand between him and Pimmel, where Pimmel was already voicing these concerns to the commissioner, and the commissioner just had not addressed them at all.
Ball turned over by Philly that turns into a Voodoo touchdown.
The game went on as planned, but the league hired replacement players from another league to play for the team. But the Louisiana Voodoo were also facing similar hardships.
Breaking sports news, the Louisiana Voodoo Arena football team moving to Lafayette from Lake Charles. Sources tell me the main reason for the switch of the cities is the inability to work with the management company ASM, the management group in Lake Charles. The team will play at Blackham Coliseum this season, and the field will be installed this weekend.
The management company, they released a full statement through their attorney that the AFL had failed to pay their rent or provide an insurance certificate, so their contract there was terminated. So after the contract was terminated, I wanted to see what was happening in Lafayette and if the same thing was happening to the event coordinators there. And I learned that the AFL did provide a certificate of insurance to the University of Louisiana at Lafayette, but the Minnesota Myth was listed as the insured party. I'm not sure how that got through. And I'm not sure what the insurance said on Lake Charles, but from what I understand, they didn't provide an insurance certificate at all. So the contract stated that renting the Coliseum for their home games would cost a little over $60,000. And as far as the payment terms, the AFL agreed to pay a 50% deposit prior to their first game. And they would have to complete all their payments by 2 weeks before their last game. Now, the league wanted to put a check in the mail, but ULL put a stop to that and said that they couldn't do it, that it needed to be a credit card payment. And that's whenever we see correspondence between the travel board and University of Lafayette with the $20,000 subsidy. We also saw that May 9th, the university sent Lee Hutton a letter demanding that 50% deposit or they would be barred from access to the Coliseum. Coach Shiver told me that Travell Games paid $6,000 before their first game. So I requested copies of all AFL payments from the university, and I was only provided with one receipt, and that receipt was for $5,000.
I get a phone call literally at noon telling me that my players had to check out of the hotel because all the hotels were rented for Festival International, and that the league sent me a text that we're going to figure out where we're going to sleep. We'll probably have to sleep out of town for a couple nights for the festival, and then we'll move back into town. That was the text message I had on my phone. Never questioned anything. Come to find out, Anthony, that's not the truth. Okay, yeah, we had to move out of that hotel for Festival International, but the players had no place to stay. And so at halftime, I started texting the league, finding out where we're going that night because I want to be able to tell the guys after the game. We had a big lead, and I just was going to, there was no reason for me to focus on the game at that point. So I sent a text, hey, where are the guys sleeping at tonight? I'm thinking maybe in a little town called Doosan, maybe in a little town called Opelousas. They got these little surrounding areas with hotels, and I thought maybe one of those little areas, okay? Crickets. A text message comes back sometime in the fourth quarter. I get it when the game is ending. And it says, Coach, send the guys home. We're going to regroup and start over again next week. Now, Anthony, half of my team is from other parts of the United States. If I send my guys home, how do I get them back? How do they get home without their paychecks? I do feel like, I've been lied to. My players have been ripped off. They don't have housing. I'm upset for my community. I'm upset for the bills that are unpaid in my community. All those things. I'm upset about that. Yeah, I'm definitely upset about it. And I'm not going to quit fighting until that's done right. If I have to hire lawyers to make that happen.
It's really a shame that the Louisiana Voodoo wasn't able to continue on in the league because I think it could have been something really good for Lafayette and for Louisiana.
And wouldn't you know, opening week, opening game, overtime here at the MVP Arena in Albany, New York.
Before the season, Arena Football League announced NFL Network will broadcast 30-plus games over air and online. The Week 1 games to be televised were scheduled to be the Orlando Predators against the Albany Firebirds on April 27th.
Kick is up, and it is good! Mark Orozco's field goal gives Albany the 62-59 victory in overtime.
And the West Texas Desert Hawks and Georgia Force was the other game the next night. But days prior, fans noticed games were removed from NFL Network's channel lineup.
And the new time kickoff was, we can explain that, it was for the NFL Network. We thought we were going to be on there, and they wanted a 1 o'clock Eastern time kickoff. That's why we had this weird time. You should see most of the games, though, Saturday night at 7.
League officials never shared an official statement on why the games were not televised, but instead addressed it on its podcast by host Rod Villagomez.
There has been some issues as far as just getting people to talk together and having some equipment issues and stuff like that. So what we are doing now and what's happening is the NFL Network games will be moved to week 2.
However, Arena Insider later confirmed with NFL Network officials that it pulled the plug on the AFL. The full details of my call with them was off the record, but what I can say is that it had nothing to do with the reason that was shared on the podcast. The Desert Hawks shut down towards the end of the season. Owner Zach Buck addressed fans and the media on everything that happened over the last few weeks, while largely criticizing Arena Football Management, which is owned by Lee Hutton. More notably, he made a stark claim about why the game was not shown on NFL Network.
This whole amazing NFL Network deal that was going to happen, right? And they sent us emails proving, what it was, how it's going to be, what it is, what it isn't. Hey, come to find out, now we have to pay the NFL Network just to have a game. Well, my sponsors and my fans and the community of West Texas deserve to have the NFL Network because that's what we promoted, because that was based on really a lie of the AFL and what Lee Hutton was really trying to provide. So I forked over money for that so we could have the NFL Network on April 28th playing the Georgia Force, and they took that money and ran with it. So yes, I paid to have that game broadcasted, and it still didn't happen.
Bug also spoke about the injunction that nearly sidelined his team. The National Arena League sued the Desert Hawks, who were in its league at the time as the Warbirds, for breaching a 3-year contract to join a competitive league. The NAL were granted the motion before week 2. In a statement at the time, Bug initially dismissed the suit and said it was baseless, but he settled with the NAL later that week.
This injunction was never supposed to take place, and this injunction isn't on the NAL. I want to make that very clear. So, a lot of people like NAL is trying to destroy the Desert Hawks. The NAL is trying to destroy West Texas. That's not the case. We were supposed to have a deal worked out with Lee Hutton, and I trusted and confided in him to make sure everything would be handled. And if any money had to be paid, the amount of money that I already paid to the league, Lee Hutton would put forward the amount of money that I paid, take a percentage of that, whatever the number was at the end of the day, and give it to the NAL. So this injunction never took place. Well, this injunction took place in Georgia. I honestly didn't have an attorney in Atlanta, Georgia, and anywhere in the state of Georgia at all. So I was hit with an injunction, honestly, 48 hours before it happened. Obviously, I couldn't get there in time, or whatever the case may be. You got to get an attorney, et cetera, et cetera. Couldn't get it. What I didn't know, to fast forward, is Lee Hutton has a prominent minority group of the AFL, or so he says, that can represent me in Georgia after the injunction hits, which is very surprising to me. And everything that he says as a man and as a person has been nothing but a lie, knowing that there was an attorney that could have represented me in the case through everything that went on with all of that league and everything else. And I can't dig into that aspect of it because I have respect for the NAL, and we have legal reasons we can't dig into that. But Lee Hutton could have done something about the injunction, and he did not. And therefore, it put me in a financial situation to where I had to pay X amount of dollars for this entire situation just to get it to go so my football team, my players, and my coaches in West Texas could see our team play.
For the Georgia Force, the team was one of a few that were owned by the league. That alone seemed to ignite tension between the coaches, players, and the entire league community.
I was inactive for week 1, so I did not travel to week 1. And I was one of only 2 players that was left inactive at home. But from group text messages and other conversations I've had with teammates, there were multiple times where our kicker was buying meals for a multitude of players on the team. Our coach got very frustrated with players on the team and said, "I'm done with y'all. I'm not even buying any y'all's food. It's on y'all for the night," and things like that. And it didn't seem like it was a very good trip for the team at all. Obviously, the result wasn't what we wanted as an organization either. But it just kind of seemed like a mess from the start. We were told very last minute when the flight would be. We just had to show up to the airport and hope we had a ticket, and then hope it was provided on the way back.
The league is getting some bad press after one of their teams actually pulled out just a couple weeks into the inaugural season.
They got a real Bush League shady operation cooking over there.
But somewhere in the organization of everything, things failed.
Players sat out because they had only been paid $250 out of the $1,000 per game that's promised in their contract.
Our teams are losing money because of his lies.
Would you rather have a half-hearted answer right now?
What's right is right and what's wrong is wrong, and there's a lot of wrong in this.